Hi everyone, welcome to Miss Adams Teaches Poetry. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Christina Rossetti's poem Remember, which is all about a narrator asking their loved one to continue to remember them even after they have died. It's an incredibly powerful love poem as much as it is about death as well. And Christina Rossetti wrote it when she was 19 years old. Now, this is not an autobiographical poem. She wasn't dying, although she was aware of death. Her father died potentially of TB. And also during the time, England was in a period of mourning because Queen Victoria's husband, Albert, Prince Albert, had died the year before. And so it was quite popular to write poems that were sort of mourning poems. So it might be that she kind of fit with the time. It's also quite interesting because she never actually married. So she had 2 marriage proposals, but she turned them both down, apparently because she was more kind of married to her faith, I suppose. But it demonstrates, that it's, like I said, it's not autobiographical, but it is someone that is really, really focusing on the notion of love and death within one poem. And without further ado, let's analyse it. Okay, so starting with that very first quatrain. Remember me when I'm gone away. So note that it starts with this direct address to the listener. We're assuming a lover or someone who is mourning the narrator. So the imperative, remember me when I am gone away. Now, gone away is a euphemism for death. It becomes a metaphor because it suggests that death is like a journey. And then that is reiterated in the repetition, or if you want a slightly fancier word, the anadiplosis here in the beginning of the second line. So we have gone away repeated here and here. That's why it's anadiplosis, because that's when you have a phrase at the end of one line repeated at the beginning of another. But of course there is this slight change in that it's gone far away, so it's emphasizing the distance that death brings, again reiterating the idea of it being a journey that only one person has gone on. And again, we've got another euphemism and another metaphor for of the silent land, which is again for death. So it's euphemistic because it makes it sound a little nicer, and again metaphorical, reinforcing the journey. But I think the impact of the adjective silent is worth considering, because you could look at that as a sense of peace and tranquility, that death is a place of quietness. But you could also look at it in terms of isolation and lack of communication. So there could also be a loneliness associated with this land, one that stops you from having communication with your loved ones back home. Excuse me. Remember me when I'm gone away, gone far away into the silent land, when you can no more hold me by the hand, nor I half turn to go yet turning stay. So there's a focus on the negative forms here, when you can no more hold me, and then nor I half turn. So she's talking about, the narrator is talking about what can no longer be done. So immediately again, we're being reminded of that sense of loss. Now, the image of holding you by the hand is obviously very natural. It's very intimate. It's very simplistic. So it kind of harks to a sort of affectionate relationship between her and the person that the narrator is sort of speaking to. And the idea about half turning to go or turning to stay suggests a kind of sense of reluctance. So she's recalling times where maybe, she moved away and then kind of went back to say, okay, no, maybe I'll stay. And obviously in death, there is no opportunity. When you're gone, you're gone. And so there is a sort of almost a regret in some ways that no longer will she be able to turn halfway and want to stay further. So in this opening quatrain, we've got this clear instruction. She wants to be remembered. She wants her partner to kind of keep her alive in that way, because she knows that in death she is so far, far away. Okay, now that imperative is repeated again here. In fact, it almost becomes a refrain in the poem. So remember me when no more day by day. Note we've got further negative constructions here. Again, a repetition of no more. No more day by day. Now, day by day is an adverbial. And it suggests continuation. So it's almost like the routine, the regular things that happened on an ongoing basis. So we're no more day by day. You tell me of our future that you planned. Now, this is quite interesting. If you look at the agency of this line, the agency is all in the partner. You tell me. So he is the subject and she is the object. You tell me of our future that you planned. I think this is quite interesting. It could be a sort of reflection of society at the time, because we are in the 19th century, so the man would have been in the controlling seat, I suppose, and so would be potentially making those future plans. It could be a kind of reference to marriage and this kind of happier time. So there could be something quite loving in this idea of, of what you imagined for us. But the fact that it's not her plans, so you tell me of our future that you planned, you could look at this sort of autobiographically as well, that this the narrator that she's created might be reflecting aspects of how Rossetti felt herself, because we do know that later on in her life she went on to turn down 2 marriage proposals despite great feelings of affection. So is there a kind of sense of this narrator almost imagining that she wouldn't really be a part of those plans? Different ideas there. You can kind of run with whichever you want or offer up more than one interpretation, which examiners do love. Only remember me. So again, we've got that repeated imperative working as a refrain, but now we've got this adverb only. Only remember me. So it emphasizes the importance that this is the most important thing to remember, the narrator. Only remember me, you understand it will be late to counsel then or pray. Now notice here we've got the caesura punctuation, it's in the middle of the line, so it breaks it up, and on either side you've got juxtaposing pronouns. You've got me and then you, and the fact that it's separated out by a caesura, you could say is almost sort of symbolic for, the distance has grown between them because of death, or a kind of dissociation. There's also a sense of inevitability of death and a kind of sense of regret that comes with it as well. It will be too late to counsel then or pray. Now counsel in this case means offer advice. So sorry, it's not it will be too late. It will be late to counsel then or pray. So it's saying there is no more time for that because death is coming or death has come. It's interesting, the idea of again suggesting that she would be the one that would need advice or counsel, again potentially showing that power dynamic of the 19th century. Okay, and then the final sestet of the poem, which is the last 6 lines, there is a shift. Now the reason that is marked here, it's called a volta, and I'll talk to you more about form in a moment, but in this kind of sonnet on the 9th line, there is normally a shift in either tone or topic, and that is called the volta, and it's marked here in particular by this connective here. Again, it's a negating connective. Yet if you should forget me for a while, note that we've moved into subjunctive tense, so there's a kind of sense of the possibility or probability, like if you were to forget me. It's like a hypothetical suggestion. If you were to forget me for a while and afterwards remember, do not grieve. So this is a slight shift, because previously it was saying remember me, remember me, remember me. And now she's saying, oh, but if you don't, do not grieve. Don't be upset. Don't be upset with yourself. And quite a complicated line here. For if the darkness and corruption leave a vestige of the thoughts that once I had, better by far you should forget and smile than that you should remember and be sad. So the darkness and corruption is like a metaphor or a symbol for the death itself. Some people read this as the kind of being left with the earthly sort of burdens, but I think actually what she's saying here is if the darkness and corruption of death, if my death leaves you with just a trace of me left. So if I'm gone, death has taken me, but you've got this little remnants of me, and the way that I thought and the way that I was, then it is better for you to forget and smile. So we've got this juxtaposition here in better by far you should forget and smile than you should remember and be sad. So the juxtaposition comes here between smile and sad. It comes here between forget and remember. But it's also a kind of juxtaposition with the other half of the poem where the focus was keep me in your brain, keep me in your mind. And now, actually, the final wish and message is of happiness and of love. She's saying, yes, I'll be gone, and it is better that you forget me and are able to be happy than you should continue remembering and be sad. So she wants to be remembered, but not at the cost of happiness. Okay, a couple of notes on form. This is a Petrarchan sonnet. Now, that kind of makes sense because Rossetti's father was Italian and taught many of the great Italian works, so it's no surprise that she was influenced by him in that way. Petrarchan sonnets are associated with love, and even though this is a poem that is about death, it is of course about love as well, because it is about a relationship where one person has died and that kind of mourning, so it makes sense it's Petrarchan sonnet. Sonnets are separated out into octaves and sestets, so octave being 8 lines, so you could see that you've got the 2 quatrains, and then your sestet, which is the final 6. And that first line of the sestet is, as I mentioned before, the volta, which is the moment where there is a shift. And so when you're analysing the poem, do make reference to that shift, do use the term volta, do talk about the fact that the sestet begins with a new idea, and then as long as you're explaining the impact of those moments and what's on those lines, then you are dealing with form. Okay, that's it from me. I hope that was helpful for you. Do let me know if you've got any questions. That's the last video. That's the last poetry analysis for this collection. But I will put a couple of bits and pieces up there for tackling comparisons and writing your essays. So do keep posted. Do keep a lookout for those for when I post them. Do subscribe as well, and then you can get notifications for when they're ready. That's it from me. Thank you so much again for watching. Happy revising.